No, thank you, Madam Toastmaster. If you listen to the news this morning, you know Israel is in the news today. For the first time, the rockets from the Gaza Strip have hit near Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So, from a perspective standpoint, what does that mean in terms of, how close are these places together? What is going on with Israel? Why Israel, and how does it relate to you? Why do we even care? Well, first of all, I'll point out on the map, there's a lot of maps in this one, which is very helpful. Israel is at the extreme eastern side of the Mediterranean Sea, just a very small country that you see here. And if you go to the bigger map that the postgraduate school was kind enough to leave up, Israel, again here by the Mediterranean Sea, to the north is Lebanon, to the northeast is Syria, and I think we've all heard about what's going on in Syria recently. To the immediate east is Jordan, which is most of the eastern boundary with Israel, and then the Sinai Desert and Egypt to the southwest. Now, modern Israel was founded in 1948 as a way to give the Israeli people their homeland back, if you will, after World War II and the Holocaust and over 6 million people killed by the Nazis, Jewish people killed by the Nazis in World War II. The history of the Israeli people goes back over 6,000 years in their homeland, but for 2,000 years almost, they did not have a homeland until the United Nations in 1948 set aside part of what was then Palestine for the Israelis. Now, if you look at Israel, I've broken it up to a bigger map here. I've got a couple of maps which were given to me concomitant with the information I got on the trip, which I think is the right pronunciation. I'm not sure of that. But Israel in 1948 was this strip here, not including what is now known as the West Bank or Gaza, and all the way down to the bottom near the Red Sea, and down by the Red Sea. Now, in this area, if you look at this dotted line, which was under Palestinian control until 1967, it's only about 9 miles from there to the sea. So this is a very tough area for Israel to try to defend itself if it's attacked. So in 1967, Israel said, enough of this, we need a buffer zone around our country, and so they invaded the West Bank and took over all the way to the Jordan River. They invaded the Golan Heights, which is this area right up here, which overlooked Israel from Syria, and Gaza Strip, and through the Sinai Desert on out to almost to the Nile. So Israel captured a lot of territory all of a sudden in this 6-day war to give them real estate, if you will, that allowed them to defend themselves since they were constantly being attacked. Now, since that time, the Israelis made a peace treaty with Egypt and gave the Sinai Desert back to Egypt, and have subsequently also withdrawn from the Gaza Strip. And they did that only several years ago, whereas the peace treaty with Egypt was made, I think, 1979. So they now are ruling the day that they were pulled out of Gaza, because since that time, the Palestinians in Gaza have taken to getting in rockets and missiles imported from Iran and other places, and in the last couple of weeks have started shooting them again at the Israelis. And just yesterday, a couple of missiles landed near Tel Aviv, which is the airport that I flew into in June, and one today near Jerusalem. Now, from a standpoint of how far this is away, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv are roughly 45 to 50 miles from the Gaza Strip. That's not very far. That's not even from here to San Jose. The whole country, from north to south, from the very tippy top to the very bottom, is about 300 miles. That's less than the distance from Monterey to Los Angeles. So that kind of puts into perspective how small this country is, and yet it's a completely developed first world country. Now, the Israel today has many different aspects. In the northwest, it's fairly lush. They get a fair amount of rain and even snow in the mountains, and even Jerusalem gets snow from time to time. Jerusalem's at 2,500 feet elevation, and Jerusalem from the sea is about 30 miles. That's not very far. And to the west, or rather to the east of Jerusalem, is all desert. This area in the West Bank is almost completely Spartan desert. There's nothing there. And further south, it's even worse. It makes Death Valley look like an oasis. And in the geography, again, of Israel, on the side of the Mediterranean, it's a very moist climate along the coast with Tel Aviv. And you go inland and you go to the Sea of Galilee, which is really a freshwater lake. And the Sea of Galilee is 600 feet below sea level because there was a major earthquake fault down here, very much like the San Andreas fault. And there have been major earthquakes over the centuries that have been of biblical, literally, proportions. And out of the Sea of Galilee flows the Jordan River, at least it used to. But now, most of the water from the Jordan River has been diverted for agriculture and other uses, so the river is dry. And whereas it used to fill up the Dead Sea, it no longer does. And so the Dead Sea is sinking at a rate of about 3 feet a year. And in the last year, it actually sank 4.5 feet. And so I'm glad I got there when I did. Now, it may not be there a whole lot longer. Now, the nature of the border with Jordan, Israel is pretty much at peace with Jordan at the present time, which is good news. And the interesting thing is we drove along the border. There wasn't much of a border. It was a 4-foot high barbed wire fence. That was it on the side with Jordan from the West Bank. And we were through this whole West Bank area. Now, on the other side near Jerusalem, the West Bank actually, or rather this West Bank line actually cuts through Jerusalem and includes Bethlehem. So Bethlehem of biblical times, of Jesus' time, is actually in the West Bank. It's about 5 miles from Jerusalem. There, the border is much different. It looks like the Berlin Wall. And with high cement barriers with coiled barbed wire on top and a lot of guard posts where we weren't allowed to take pictures. So this is a very interesting time for Israel. I'm going to be giving a number of speeches over the next year or so about our experiences there. And my perceptions, I think, from what I thought before I went and what my perceptions now are a little bit different in a number of ways. This is a country with 8 million people, which is, compared to California with 40 million people, not that much. But it's a very important country, and we'll hear more about it in future speeches. Now,